Me first?
Yes.
Jack Truesdell.
Spell it.
Spell it Truesdell.
All right, and you can go.
I'm Elsie Truesdell.
All right, thank you. And you can go, Steve.
All right. All right, so first I guess I'll ask you guys where you guys were born and raised. So you want to start with you?
Go
I was
ahead.
born in London,
London.
England, in
Okay.
1922.
1922, wow. London, England. And you said you were born in Washington?
No,
Oh, okay.
wasn't born here. I was born in Marysville, Kansas. Moved to Washington, Missouri when I was about less than a year old, probably.
Oh, okay. All right.
Graduated from Washington High School in 1941.
Yeah. Now, how about you? When did you move to the United States?
Well, we were married in 1945,
Mm-hmm.
and I came over in 1946.
46?
Mm-hmm.
And how old were you?
I was, I was born
You're
in
22 when we got
22, so
married.
I was 23.
23.
When you got married, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And then, I guess, what were you guys doing at the start of the war?
At the start of the war, I was a student at Missouri University.
Missouri University?
Yeah.
And what year were you? Do you remember?
I was in my sophomore year.
Sophomore year?
Mhm.
And how about you, Elsie?
Pardon?
What were you doing at the start of the war?
Start of the war, getting prepared for it.
Getting prepared for it? And what did that include? What were you?
Well, really not very much. We were, you know, you just hoped that it wasn't going to happen.
Right.
And it happened earlier than when you were experienced it. It happened September the 3rd, 1939.
Yeah, 39, that's right.
And on that day, my sister Mari, who was only 12 years of age, and the girl next door were in a little park that was quite close to us. And we heard this airplane come over, and I thought, oh my gosh. And she came running home. They both came running home. She was white as a sheet. And I said, what happened? And she said, he came down and sort of strafed the area and was grinning at them.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank God they weren't hurt, you
Right,
know. And
right.
I don't think he intended to hurt them. I think
Right.
he just wanted to scare them,
Right.
which he did.
Right. Wow. That is crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. So you said you were in college. Were you drafted or did you volunteer?
I was drafted
You were drafted.
January of 43.
January 43? All right. And then what did you go in to do? Like what were you? What
I went into the Army Air Corps.
Army Air Corps?
Mhm.
Why'd you choose that?
I didn't choose it.
You didn't choose it?
I was drafted.
Okay. So you were basically, okay.
No, they put me there.
Okay, gotcha. What was your exact duties for that?
I was in the ordnance department. Our job was loading and fusing bombs,
Loading and fusing.
aircraft bombs.
So did you spend most of your time here, or did you spend your time overseas, or
Most of the time in England.
in England? Okay.
Yeah, I was in less than 6 months when I went overseas.
6 months overseas?
Went to
He
school.
went over here 6 months before he went
Okay.
over.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Gotcha. All right. And how'd you guys meet?
At a dance.
At a dance?
Hmm.
My sister-in-law asked me to go, and I said, well, she said, you know you love to dance, and you dance well, which I did, and when we got out of the escalator, we had to walk, and what was the name of the place?
Covent Garden.
Covent Garden,
It was
which had been turned into, it was an opera house there, and it'd been turned into a dance hall for servicemen and women.
Mm-hmm.
And we were on our way, the air siren sounded, so we hurried along in the dark, of course, and we finally got there, and we were standing outside, and I could hear Mary talking to somebody, and I said,
You left out a little bit there.
what did I leave out?
That they
Oh,
you
that-
couldn't get in the place
Oh, yeah,
because
and-
during an air raid
Yeah,
they wouldn't
closed the
allow
doors.
anybody in or out,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Which
So
was horrible.
Right.
that was the
Anyhow.
reason we were all outside.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
And I heard her talking to a voice that was familiar, and I I said, "Is that you, Ron?" And he said, "Is that you, Elsie?" And I said, lived just a few doors from where I live, and he was in the service.
Uh-huh.
So we got to talking, and then Mary started talking to Jack, because he was outside.
I was behind them in line, waiting to get in.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we got to talking, and then we introduced ourselves, of course.
Yes.
And Jack had the first dance with Mary. When the all clear sounded, the door opened, and she had the first dance with him, or he had with her. And then he asked me for the next dance, and we danced the rest of the evening.
Yeah, it's history from there, right?
Yeah.
All right.
And then it happened from there on.
Yeah. So, like, what exactly did you guys think about the start of the war? What was your, were you worried, or were you kind of like, bring it, or?
I was anxious, really anxious to do my part. You
Right.
know.
Which you did.
I was ready to go,
Mm-hmm.
and in fact, when they drafted me in the 1st of January, and the semester wasn't over until maybe 3 or 4 weeks after that.
Right.
So I had to leave without even taking any final exams or anything
Right,
for
yeah.
the semester.
Did you get to, after the war, did you get a chance to finish college off, or?
No, well, I guess I had a chance, but
You didn't.
I got married during that time, you know, and so
Right.
I had too many responsibilities. I couldn't afford to go back.
Right.
I had to go to
Right.
work, so
All right.
no, I never finished.
Never finished. All right. Okay. So what boot camp did you go to?
Well, in the Navy, it's called boot camp. In the Army, it's basic training. At
I forgot what.
That's Jefferson Barracks, South St. Louis.
Jefferson Barracks?
Yeah, Jefferson Barracks,
Okay.
South St. Louis. And I went to school after that, to ordnance school.
Ordnance school.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me what both of your like most memorable experience were from the war?
I had too many horrible
Too many
experiences.
horrible experiences.
One time, they built a brick air raid shelter right outside our house, about from here to where you are. And the air raid siren went off, and my mother and father said, "You girls go." And we said, "No, not without you." "Yes, you go." So we ran, and I ran and hit the side of the brick shelter and cut off half my eyebrow and screamed, and they thought I'd been hit with a bomb or something. Came running to the entrance and grabbed me, and I was bleeding. Not very much, I don't remember anymore.
Right.
But I told them what had happened, because we all started laughing.
Oh.
And another time, we went to another air raid shelter that my sister worked at this place. I don't remember they were doing something for the war, and they had turned the basement into an air raid shelter and had bunks. And one evening, my sister Mara and I, and Gladys, who was older, she was 10 years older than I, was running ahead of us, and we were both running. All three of us were running, and suddenly we screamed, and she turned around. She said, "What happened?" And I said, "Just go on, we're all right, we haven't been hurt, go, go, go." A piece of shrapnel had fallen in between us and burst into flames,
Oh, wow.
and naturally scared us half to death.
Wow, I bet.
And we continued to run, got in the place. It wasn't very far from where we lived, and when we got inside, she was passed out.
Oh, wow.
And they were taken care of.
Yeah. Wow.
Uh,
So did you have any siblings that happened to go in?
Pardon?
Did you have any brothers or anything that happened to go in?
My brother Harold was in the Air Force,
Okay.
but my brother Joe was not. He was not able to go. He had been born with a foot that was, his leg was shorter than the other one, not terribly, and he wore these shoes.
Elevated shoe.
Yeah, elevated shoe on his right foot, so
Yeah.
he didn't have to go.
Yeah. And how about you, Jack? What about memorable experiences?
When you took the bomb off the plane.
Well, it was one time. We had some bombs that were fused with, I've forgotten what they were called now. But fuses that the bombs wouldn't explode when they hit. They were timed fuses.
Right.
And one of the planes that my crew had loaded, the bombardier checking things out before they got ready to take off, and he dropped the bombs on the ground underneath the plane. Mm-hmm. And so it was up to us to load up those bombs and take them away, because we didn't know when they were, what time they were supposed to
right.
go off.
Right.
So we had to get them up as soon as we could and haul them away. That was dangerous.
Yeah.
And but that's, you know, it's just part of our job, really.
Right. Right.
It was really hard work because those things are really heavy. And,
oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I know ordnance is usually, isn't that special forces now?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I don't know what it is now.
Yeah,
but,
I know you have to go through a lot of special training.
Yeah. So this was all 60-some years ago.
Right, yeah. That was a while ago.
Yeah.
Did you see any combat at all, or did you?
No direct combat.
No combat at all?
No.
Thank goodness.
Our planes did, but
Right.
we got them ready, got them loaded, and they came back, and we preloaded, you know.
Right.
But no, we didn't. I didn't see any direct combat.
So where exactly were you stationed at?
Well, I was stationed at two different places in England. One was at Wendling, which you wouldn't. We had Wendling.
The other was I.
The other one was at Eye, both small little villages where we had big bases built there.
Right.
And we had B-24 bombers at first, and then after it's about a year after we got there, I guess they transferred our ordnance department, and my squadron got transferred to another base. The planes that had just come over, a bomber group that had just come over, didn't have any ordnance department, and they had B-17s. So we had to switch over and know how to use it. But it wasn't hard. It was,
right.
But same kind of bombs, but different interior in the planes, you know. But,
right. How, like, during the war, it's going to be kind of scattered. I'm going to ask different questions about everything.
It's all right.
All right. Now, did you have to deal with a lot of rationing and stuff?
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah. How did you guys like that? Did you?
Dreadful.
Dreadful.
We had, I was trying to think, one thing that we had just once a week. I can't remember what it was. And it was only enough, I had two sisters at home, and Mummy had died during the war in 1930, right after the war started. And Daddy had remarried before I came over, but he remarried. And so we went with him, and I think it was a loaf of bread that I think it was something different from that, but we didn't have, and meat was just unbelievable. You were lucky if we got 2 ounces of meat a week.
2 ounces of
per
meat
Per person.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. And eggs, we never saw eggs during the war.
Never saw eggs?
No. Which was kind of ridiculous.
Right. All right. What did you guys think about the enemy? I mean,
The enemy?
yeah.
Well, actually, we didn't really know enough about the enemy really during the war.
So they kind of just.
You know, I learned a lot about them afterwards, and I was glad that we did what we did.
Right. So you guys were pretty much clueless while you were there.
Beg your pardon?
You guys were pretty much clueless while you were there. You were clueless while.
Clueless. Yeah, almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, no newspapers or anything, and of course, there wasn't any television in those days.
Right.
No, that's right.
And we didn't even have radios or anything that we could listen to any news of any kind,
Right.
you know.
Did you have any friends or family drafted in, or go in the Army with you?
I had a brother that was in the Coast Guard.
Brother was in the Coast Guard?
He was stationed in Texas all all during the war.
Oh yeah.
I got another brother that went in the Korean War.
Oh, Korean War.
Yeah.
Kicking.
He was in the Army and he went to Korea.
Yeah. And before you, did you have any, like, was your father in the Army or your grandfather?
My father was in the Navy in World War I. Yeah.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
All right. Did you, like, receive any medals or citations?
I got what they call a soldier's medal.
Soldier's medal?
We had an airplane that caught fire while we were in the process of getting the planes ready. And the bombs had been delivered there, but they were just laying on the tarmac under the plane, ready to be loaded. And it wasn't one of my planes, but when that plane caught fire, well, they asked for volunteers to get those bombs away from there, which I did. I and my sergeant in charge of our whole group and the officer that was in charge of our whole group, the three of us went and got those bombs away from there.
Wow.
And
Gotta-
unknowns to me, it was maybe a couple of months after that, well, I was notified that I was going to be awarded the soldier's medal.
Yeah.
And a general came over to all three of us got the soldier's medal for doing that. Yeah.
I bet was that probably pretty scary at the time?
It was scary at the time. Yes,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Wow.
But you've got several medals in that.
Well, the others are just they're good conduct medal, and the ribbons for European Theater of Operations. That's what my ribbons are for.
Yeah. I guess this will go to both of you as well. What did you guys do for entertainment?
Well, that's how we met.
So dancing.
Yeah, I didn't. Of course, I would get a leave, maybe a 48-hour pass, about once a month. I can't remember whether it was how often in between it was, but it wasn't wasn't often enough.
Wasn't often enough.
But
So you
anyway, I had gone to London with a good friend of mine, Ed Donovan, who was also the best man at our wedding.
Yeah.
I had gone on to leave to London with him a few times, and I don't know. For this time, I went by myself. I don't remember why, but he didn't get a leave the same time I did.
Yeah.
So I went by myself to Covent Garden that night. And that was the beginning.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So you guys didn't get to really see each other a lot then, did you?
Pardon?
Yeah.
You guys didn't really get to see each other a lot, did you? After
No,
you
we
guys-
didn't.
A whole lot.
No.
But
Well,
yes, it
Was
wasn't too bad, was it?
it wasn't too bad. She came up twice, I think.
Yeah. Mhm.
Came up to where our base was, and
Yeah.
the
Stayed for a
first
week.
time I found a place in a private home that had a spare bedroom, but they didn't have an indoor bathroom.
And the spare bedroom only had a twin bed.
Yeah, that's
Or a
right.
single
Yeah.
bed.
Yeah.
But anyway, she spent the night there, and another time she came up, and there was a little hotel in the village just outside our base, and I'd made a reservation for staying there, and
Yeah.
that worked out
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
I think it was only twice she came up. I think
I think it was 2 or 3 times. I
maybe
can't,
three.
I can't
I'm not
remember.
sure.
Yeah.
Did you guys write each other or anything?
Yes,
Did we?
constantly.
You can't remember.
I wrote a lot.
Yeah. Constantly then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I left England in October of 45. And of course, she didn't come over until the following
February the 26th.
end of February, yeah.
Yeah.
And during that time, well, we both wrote lots of letters to each other.
Yeah. Do you guys still have any of those, or do you guys?
Pardon?
Do you guys still have any of those?
I do.
You do. Yeah. Oh boy. Did you have to? Did you bring? Do you have a lot of stuff back from the war, or?
No.
No.
I didn't even keep my uniform.
You didn't keep
No,
that?
we
No.
didn't. Now the people do.
Yeah.
Right.
That didn't.
Yeah.
No, I don't know why I didn't.
No, I have no idea why.
Guess
I
I didn't want to think about it anymore,
Right.
maybe.
Yeah, it's a possibility.
Yeah.
Have you always been able to talk about it, or is it kind of?
I don't like to talk about it, really.
You don't?
Yeah, no.
Well, we definitely appreciate you talking for us.
Yeah,
you're
that's all
certainly
right.
About
welcome.
that. How did? I know you probably came. How long were you out of Washington? How long were you gone from Washington for?
How long?
Yeah, total amount of time.
Almost 3 years.
Almost 3 years.
Yeah.
Did Washington change a lot by the time you got back?
No.
No, it didn't.
No. During the war, things didn't change very much.
Yeah.
No.
Gotcha.
It's changed a lot in the last few years.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you got that.
Yeah.
It's continuing too.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Even from I've only been here for 2.5 years. It's
Yeah,
changed
you
a
can
lot
see the
since I've been
difference.
here.
Yeah,
So, so you guys got married in England, right?
Yes.
Where'd you guys get married at?
St. Giles Church in Camberwell, London.
Saint what?
St. Giles, Giles.
Giles.
Church in London.
Mm-hmm.
Was it it was
It's Camberwell after St. Giles Church. Camberwell.
Yeah,
That's
Camberwell.
that's the district that it was in.
Southeast 5, London.
so you guys probably, I mean, you didn't have your family here.
No.
And then-
Well, I after our wedding was arranged, I got a letter from I guess a second or third cousin of mine, who we'd gone to school together at Westminster College the year before I went to Mizzou, and well, he came up to Mizzou too for his sophomore year. I'd forgotten that, but anyway, I got a letter from him that told me that he had just arrived in England, and he was a bombardier. No, he was a. It doesn't make any difference.
Right.
But so I wrote to him right away, and I told him whoever were getting married, and the time was I hope he could get there, and he made it there. He was the only relative, if you can call it a relative. He was just a second cousin.
Right.
But
Yeah. That's still really
but
cool.
yeah,
Yeah. Did you guys? Was it a big wedding? Was it like?
no,
Just family.
just family and friends.
Yeah. Gotcha. So then you came back to Washington. So what did you guys do when you guys got home? I mean, would you work or
I didn't work.
you didn't work?
When I came home, of course, I came home a few months before she did. I went to work the day after I got my discharge.
Yeah.
An uncle of mine owned a meat market and grocery store, and he and my parents came to came to Jefferson Barracks, and I had to be there for a couple of days before I got discharged. But they came. We arrived there on Saturday, and they came to see me on Sunday, and took me out to dinner. Took me out to dinner that evening, and my uncle asked me if I could go to work for him, and I said yes. I said I don't know what I'm going to do. I know I can't go back to school because I just can't afford it now. But I said, yeah, I'd like to go to work for you. He says, well, we need help. So I said, well, give me about a week after I get home, and then I'll be ready to work. Well, I got his brother, another uncle, came to pick me up on Tuesday, I guess it was, when I got my discharge, and and took me home to my parents' house. And the next morning, about 7 o'clock, my uncle called and asked if I could come to work.
Yeah.
And I worked ever since then, for about 20 years.
Yeah. And what was it? What meat market was it?
It was Azel's Supermarket, ASEL. It's not in existence anymore. We closed that store in 1965.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So then, when did you guys end up having your first child?
Pardon? Our first child?
Mm-hmm.
David was born in 1947.
47?
Mm-hmm.
June 18th.
Yeah. Then we've had 3 girls also.
3 girls? I bet you love that.
David wasn't very crazy about that idea.
Oh, yeah. I don't think I would be either.
Yeah.
I got an uncle of mine, he has all girls.
Yeah.
doesn't like
He
it.
was very interested in classical music.
Uh-huh.
And I finally, I don't remember what year it was, I think Debbie was 5. We belonged to the Presbyterian Church, and the secretary asked me if I would take over for her. She said she was quitting, and I said, yeah, I guess I can. So I went to work as the secretary for the minister.
Mm-hmm.
I worked for 9 years for him.
Yeah.
And he used to make me furious because he loved to play the organ. And we were in the basement, and he'd leave me sitting there with nothing to do,
Uh-huh.
and he'd be upstairs playing the organ.
Oh, yeah.
And he'd be up there for at least 2 hours, and then finally come down and give me some work to do.
Yeah.
And I was a shorthand typist, you know, so.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Oh. Mm-hmm. This will probably go more towards you. Like, what kind of rules and laws did you have to follow during the war? Was there any special? Was there any special ones, or no?
There weren't any rules that I can remember. Can you?
Oh.
Oh, we had to, of course, make sure that the homes were dark.
Blackout
Had to
rules.
put,
Yeah,
had
yeah.
to close the,
All over the whole country was that way.
the whole country.
Yeah.
Had to have that window, you know, when
Right.
the every siren sounded.
Yeah. Gotcha. After you the service, did you guys keep in touch with the friends and people you
Yeah,
met?
Mm-hmm.
Ed, we kept
Well,
in
Ed
touch.
Donovan,
Yeah,
my
our best
friend
man.
that was best man at our wedding, lives in Spirit Lake, Iowa. And we went up there to visit him one time at
Yeah.
about, I believe it was in 1950, but
Was it?
yeah, I think it was.
And then one time we took the children, didn't we, the girls?
Well, that was the only time we
Oh,
went.
was it?
We took.
Oh, I thought we
Debbie
went,
wasn't born yet when.
I thought we went more often, at
No,
least another
no,
time. No?
Uh-uh.
Well, then they came and visited us one time.
Yeah. We still get Christmas cards and
Yeah.
send them a Christmas
Yeah.
card, you know.
Yeah. So when the war was declared over, how did you guys feel? Like, what's the first thing you did?
Look for a gun that shoots rocket type things, you know.
Flare rockets?
Flare rocket.
Flares,
Yeah, thank
yeah.
you. Yeah.
That's the first thing you did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The planes, all the planes had them, you know.
Right. Yeah. How about you? What'd you do?
All I know is I just thank God for it.
Thank God, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I volunteered. They asked for volunteers for a certain number of people to stay at our base until the Royal Air Force could take over. After the rest of the group all flew home, you know. So I volunteered because I knew Elsie wasn't going to be able to come right away, so I volunteered to stay.
Yeah.
But about less than a week after they left, word came down that I was being transferred. Just me, by myself.
Oh, really?
We'd been transferred, and I didn't know where in the heck I was going.
Right.
And they sent me to a bomber group that was going to go to Germany for Army of Occupation.
Oh, wow.
And after the war was over, they classified people according to how many points they had, whether they were eligible for discharge. And the number of points was 85 points. If you had 85 or more points, and then you got points for length of service and length of overseas service, and I had 85 points. So when I got there where they sent me, well, I asked him at the order room. I said, well, what are you going to be doing? I said, why was I sent here? And he told me that we're going to Army of Occupation in Germany. I said, well, you don't want me. And my records weren't there.
Oh, no.
So he said, well, we don't have your records yet, but they should be sent and should be there soon. I said, well, in the meantime, can you give me a pass to go to London to visit my wife? Yeah. Which they did. And I was able to spend a couple of days in London. When I got back, well, they got my record, and they said, we're going to send you to, I can't remember where it was now. It was a staging area where guys were, got their orders to be sent home.
Okay.
And I was there for, I don't know.
6 weeks? Was it?
Maybe 6 weeks or so. And then I got word I was sent to a fighter group in, I can't remember the town now. And anyway, and that fighter group was, the whole group was going to be sent home. And by the way, I went over there on the Queen Mary, and I came back on the Queen Mary, which was very fortunate.
Yes.
It took just 5 days each way.
Oh, well, really?
Took me 9 days on the ship that I came.
Oh, yeah. 9 days? What's up with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there were 3 women that had babies, and 3 of them died. The babies died.
On the way here?
Mm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Terrible.
That is. So I guess, I mean, how was it on the ship on the way here? I mean, was it?
It was quite nice, you know. I can remember one time, there was a woman in my room, but there were 3 of us women in this one room.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them was pregnant, very much pregnant. And she would get to we had to go down below to eat, and she would get to the steps and she'd say, I can't eat, and go back into her room.
Yeah.
And I tried to take things to her, but she just wouldn't eat. She just couldn't eat.
Yeah,
I
she's
can
seasick.
remember one time I went there and got to the steps and I thought, no, I don't want to eat either. Fortunately, I didn't get seasick.
Right, yeah.
Oh, and another time, I don't know, I guess one of the, maybe the captain, I don't know, asked me to take some letters, do some typing for him, and I said, yes, I'll be only too glad to. And I was sitting at the desk, and, you know, and typing, and then the chair would go away from the desk. And finally I said, I can't do it. And he was quite nice about it. He said,
Yeah.
I can understand.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, man. You guys have any more funny stories about anything going on at the time?
I'm sorry?
Do you have any more funny stories about that was going on at the time, or?
Not any funny stories. I don't think. I have another story about my sister Mari. I was working for a insurance company, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And the area siren sounded, and the boss said, okay, we're going down in the basement. And there were 12 of us typists, and then there were other members, you know, that worked there. And we went down to the basement, and finally the all clear sounded. And he said, okay, come on up, we're going up and work again. And we got upstairs, and it wasn't very long before he said, no, we're not going to work. He said, you all go home. He said, come back tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I was going to the bus, and the bus was quite a distance from where I worked.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally got to the bus and got on, and we had conductors that took your money. And he was taking my money, and he said, Camberwell really got it today. And I said, oh. I said, I live in Camberwell. My sister's home. She's only 14. And he patted me and he said, "Don't worry," he said, "she's okay," you know, and I thought, how do you know, you know, and
Right.
finally got to Camberwell and used to take a streetcar from there to where I lived, and I just ran all the way.
Yeah.
And we lived in these great big blocks of flats that were 4 stories high, brick, and all the floors were concrete. And I looked in this great big entrance and there was glass and brick everywhere, and I thought, oh, but I looked and the house was still standing. And I finally got up the stairs. I kept falling, couldn't get up there fast enough. And I couldn't find my key, and I'm banging on the door. I could ring in the doorbell and banging, and she came to the door as white as a ghost. And I said, I took one look at her and I said, I will never pray to God again for letting this happen. She slapped me across the face and she said, you come with me. And she took me through into the dining room. We had a little patio off of there. And she said, take a look next door. And I looked and the block was completely gone, just completely. And I said, what did you do when the area siren sounded? And she said, I ran into the hall. All we had was a little piece of glass above the door, front door. And because we had linoleum, because in the hallway we had carpet other places, you know. And she said she ran in the hallway because there wasn't any glass and stood away from the door. And the linoleum came out when the blast hit and covered her face. And she said, come and look in the living room, and a picture had blown off the wall and hit into the piano.
Wow.
And I think there was just one pane of glass, just a small pane of glass in the window in the living room, but other than that, everything was okay.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah. She experienced more than I did
Yeah.
for
Oh,
such
yeah,
a youngster,
yeah.
you know.
Right. So whenever you guys had a blackout, like how long will this last usually? Did it just vary?
Pardon?
Whenever you guys had a blackout,
Mm-hmm.
how long would they last? Was it?
Oh,
Anytime it was dark.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was a long time. You know.
And for the whole
The evening, yeah.
well, for the whole length of the war. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. The whole,
even the street lights and everything. No lights at all.
yeah.
So say if was there anyone that would always go check to make sure lights are all?
Oh, they had
What we'd call them.
uh,
Lamplighters, did we call them?
no, not
No?
lamplighter.
Can't remember.
They had older men, you know, that would go around and check and make sure everything was dark, you know.
Yeah.
And they'd have a certain section to go every night. You know,
Right.
yeah.
Would you guys like get in trouble if the lights were on, or would they just kind of warn you? Or
Well, I think you would if the lights were left on, you know,
Mhm.
not
Yeah.
blinds not pulled off.
yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
So how about whenever the air raid sirens went off? Would those last a long time, or were they short?
Quite,
Right, a long
quite a
time,
length of
really.
time, yeah.
A long time.
And we finally got to the point where we didn't go, we just stayed where we were, you know, and
Yeah.
just pray that we'd be okay.
Right. Yeah.
Later on in the war, the Germans had what they call buzz bombs,
Oh gosh, yes.
and they would fly. It was actually a plane. It was not
Pilotless.
manned, and they'd send them over from the continent, and they had them timed so that they would go off at a certain time, you know.
Right.
And when they'd go off, they'd come down, and you could hear them flying,
Yeah.
and they sounded like, they didn't sound like any other airplane or anything. They had their own sound, so you knew what it was.
Right.
And you knew if it was going away from you, you didn't have to worry about it. But if it's coming towards you, you better
Yeah.
you know.
Right.
Do you remember that
Yeah.
time when we were standing on the balcony and we watched that one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
But yeah, and they did a lot of damage too.
Yeah.
Awful lot of damage.
Yeah. So where were you guys at when you seen it?
Pardon?
Where were you guys at when you seen one?
We were on the balcony.
On the balcony
darling.
where they lived.
Oh, we
really?
lived, yeah.
Wow. That would have been scary.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Alrighty. Oh yeah. Whenever you were coming to the United States, how did you feel about that? Was that something you were looking forward to, or?
I really, it was strange because I thought I would miss my family so terribly.
Mhm.
And I tried not to think about them, you know, because
Right.
I thought, I've got to live here. And I remember one time Jack came home and I was lying on the couch and
Crying.
crying. And he said, what's the matter? And I don't remember what I said. He said, well, we'll go back to London. He said, we'll live in London. I said, no, I'll be all right. I'll get over it.
Right.
But it was after how many, was it 17 years after? Before we went back for the first time?
We're 6 to 60, 16 years.
16
14 years.
14 years.
14 years.
We went back.
After
And
14 years after she came over
Right.
here,
yeah,
we went
and
back
Jack
to
stayed
visit.
just 2 weeks and I stayed 6 more.
Oh yeah.
And then came back home, and then the next time was another 10 years, wasn't it?
It was 68.
78?
No, 60, 78,
Yeah.
yeah.
And came
18
back.
years. 18 years the next time we went
Yeah,
over.
and he
But
again.
after that, it was about the
Every
time
year.
I retired, and we went every year for
Every year.
about 20 years.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But
So-
we haven't been for a long time now because it's too hard to
Yeah,
make
we
the
can't
trip
do that anymore.
Right.
for old people.
Right.
You know?
So
Yes.
my sister Mari is the only one that's living now. And she's 5 years younger than I, so she's 85. And I call her every Sunday.
Oh yeah.
Mhm. And she's had 5 strokes and she's had seizures. And last year she had her first and only great-grandson, and her daughter Erica took her to the hospital to see him, and she fell on the hospital steps and broke her hip and landed up in the hospital.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
But
and she
she's
has
doing
a hard
fine.
time talking. She can talk, but it's not, she can't get all the words out that she wants to say.
Right.
You know, but
Mhm. Yeah.
her son lives, well, her youngest son lives with her, and
Yeah.
he takes care of her. And her daughter Erica lives fairly close, and she takes her home with her every, I think, Sunday evening or Monday morning,
He spends a week with his daughter.
and
All right.
then brings her home
Yeah.
to see her, be with her son again.
Yeah. So have they ever came here and visited you guys, or?
Yes.
Yeah, they've been over twice or 3 times.
Mari has been over here
3 times.
3
probably.
times, I think.
Yeah, Mari's been over
Yeah.
3 times. My sister Gladys came over.
She
Several
came over.
times.
She came over 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Mari's daughter came over too. And in fact, she got married, over here.
Yeah.
She got married over here?
Yeah.
She divorced him.
And she,
How did she know the guy for a while, or is this?
I'm not sure.
I
I
think
think she was more interested in some other guy, and they were planning on getting married. And somehow or other, I don't know what happened, I didn't ask her, and they didn't get married. And I think she was really upset about it.
Yeah.
And I think she finally met this guy and married way too soon.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Alrighty. You guys think you have anything else you want to say or talk
I
about?
don't think so, unless you
I don't
want to
think I-
ask some more.
Yeah.
I don't think I have anything else to ask.
Okay.
Mm.
Hope we haven't bored you to death.
Oh no, you didn't. I thought it was very interesting. Well, I'm glad we did this project.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Sure.
When you came home from the war, were there any celebrations or services or anything for you?
Well, when I came over, it was a few months after the war ended, because remember I volunteered to stay over there,
Yeah.
and that was in June, and I didn't get to come back home until October. So any celebrations that they had would have been
Before.
long before I came back. So I don't know whether they did or not.
Yeah. Did you have any celebrations or services when you got your medals?
No. It just, in fact, the only people that were there were the higher up guys that were giving the medals, and the guys that were receiving them. They had nobody else was there.
Nobody else.
So.
Yeah.
Okay.
It it wasn't that big a thing, I guess.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
Not all the time, but definitely was.
Yeah.
So, do you guys think did it change you guys in any way, or did it? I mean,
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so
No.
either.
No.
were you some kind of punk kid before you went in, or
No.
completely changed? Now you're
No.
kind of
No.
still normal before and after. Yeah. Alrighty.
I was what, 21 years old, I think, when I was when I was drafted.
Right.
And,
I'm a year and a month or but a day older
yeah,
than
yeah,
him.
she's a year older
We
than
used
me.
to tease the life out of me when we were first married, you know, and I had my birthday. Call me an old lady and keep with that after a while.
Yeah. So how old are you guys now then, or
I'm 90 and a half.
90 and a half?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm 80.
Okay.
I'm 89 and a half.
89 and a half?
I'll be 90 November the 1st. So.
No,
And
no.
I'll be 91, hopefully October the 2nd.
Okay. Well, I don't think there's. I guess, I mean, do you guys remember Pearl Harbor?
Sure.
What do you guys think about that?
That was actually the beginning of when I heard about that. I just felt like I've got to do my part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we went to Pearl Harbor, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We saw Pearl
Oh, you
Harbor.
went there?
We went there.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a few years ago.
Gotcha. Have you ever done that honor flight?
Yes.
You have done that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. How'd that go for you?
Oh, it was very good.
Very
Very
Did you do it
good.
as well?
I
No.
didn't go. My
Okay.
daughter Kathy went with him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And
She
we met
was
them when-
one of the, what do they call them?
I can't remember.
They have a name for people that go. Each veteran had somebody that
Yeah.
they were
Sport.
that was looked out for them.
An
Yeah.
escort? Or something?
Escort, I guess.
Yeah,
That isn't
yeah.
what that wasn't the word, but you might. That's the kind of word you
Yeah.
use anyway.
She wanted to make sure that he was safe, you know, and I said, well, I couldn't help him, you know.
Yeah.
Right,
He
yeah.
fell, I couldn't pick him up, you know. And
Right.
so Kathy went with him. She's
And
our
she's-
oldest daughter.
Gotcha.
And then we, the family, met him when he came back to
Yeah, it was quite
St. Louis.
an experience.
Yeah. When did you do that?
Oh gosh, it's been a year and a
Can't
half ago, I
remember.
guess.
Oh, it's been more than that,
I think,
Jack.
is it?
I think it's been more than that, yeah.
Anyway, it was in October, I think.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think it's a really cool program they have there
Mhm.
going on.
Yeah.
How did you feel when you went there on the honor flight? When you got there, how did you
The flight, you mean?
like? Yeah.
Well, it was an ordinary flight. I mean,
Where exactly did you go again? Or
we went. Where do you mean now?
where'd the honor flight take you? Does it take you? to
It took
DC?
us to.
I can't remember really.
Baltimore.
Baltimore.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they had buses there to.
Yeah.
It took us to Washington D.C. from there.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Mhm.
How did you feel when you got to DC? Did it bring up a lot of memories, or did it kind of?
Well, I'd never been to D.C. before. Well, no,
You
I
had.
hadn't. Yes, I had,
Did you
but I'm not in that kind of.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
our son, when he was in the Army, was stationed in Washington D.C.
Yeah.
And one Christmas, he invited us to come and spend Christmas with him, which we did. And it had a snowstorm that night.
We were going to go out, he was going to take us out to dinner.
You know,
We walked someplace.
we walked to a Chinese restaurant. Is what we did. He had made arrangements at a hotel for us to have dinner at this hotel, a Christmas dinner.
Uh-huh.
And there was about 6 feet of snow. we
didn't get
couldn't,
to
we couldn't. But there was a Chinese restaurant in the neighborhood where he lived. I don't know, maybe a couple of blocks away. You know.
So plodded through the snow there.
Yeah.
And two of our kids were with us too.
Yeah, I can't, was it Kathy? No, I don't
No,
think.
Maury and
Kathy?
Debbie.
Yeah, Maury and Debbie. Kathy was married by then, wasn't
Yeah,
she?
yeah.
Well, I think that's really about it. I
Okay.
can't find anything else. I had a few more questions, but I already
Okay.
asked them. So, once again, I do appreciate it very much.
Well, you're
You're
welcome.
certainly
So,
welcome.
yeah.
It was nice to meet you.
You too.
Thank
You too.
Okay.
Yeah.